Hello everyone, welcome to Space Dave Live episode number 9. Awesome to have you guys here with us tonight. So my name is Dave, and with us tonight we have a few people in our studio audience, some familiar faces and a couple of new ones. Thank you very much for coming and joining us tonight. I suspect it's going to get harder and harder for us to get people along on these cold winter nights, but we really do appreciate your guys' commitment to coming along, so well done everyone. And our production assistant tonight is Jess, who is helping us out with all the usual stuff. Now if there's any comments and on the live chat and the Facebook comments, if you're getting replies, they will be from Jess. So welcome along everyone. I saw a few of your comments before. Actually, let's just start quickly with that, shall we? Because we're trying to get this whole live chat thing working a lot better, and I've actually just seen a problem. Yikes. So let's just have a quick look at them. So we've got the YouTube comments up and running, but oh no, we have got the Wendy. Thank you very much. We looks like we've got the Facebook comments going there. So if you've been watching previously, you will know that we've had a few issues trying to get these comments so that we can actually see them all. So I've been tweaking the little widgets that we've got, and I think we're getting there. I've got the fonts a little bit bigger so I can see them a bit better. And last week we had them going in different directions, which made it more confusing, but I think we're kind of slowly getting there. But I just do want to point out that each week when I go back and look after the show, I always see comments that I've missed and things that I should have answered. I'm sorry about that. I do appreciate all your comments, and we are trying our best to actually be able to interact better and better as the show goes on. So I think we really are getting there. Each week we're sort of nailing off a couple of technical issues, and we're slowly getting better and better at the whole thing. So with that, shall we have a look at our program tonight? So these are the things that we are going to be talking about after the introduction and housekeeping and whatnot. We've got I want to talk a little bit more about the science that's happening on the International Space Station. We talked about that last week, some of the science projects that have just been sent to the station. I want to go on a bit about that. There's more to talk about with the whole moon thing, honestly. Just every single week we've got more news happening about the race back to the moon. So there's some big things to talk about there, including that Blue Origin thing that we talked about last week. We'll definitely be getting there. A brief mention of what Virgin Galactic is doing, and then just a bunch more news headlines. So that is pretty much the plan for tonight. So let's get started with the competition time, shall we? So first of all, let's just recap last week's competition. If you recall, the contest last week was, what was this tweet all about? This was the one from Blue Origin, the cryptic tweet. We assumed that they were going to be doing an announcement. They did do an announcement. When was it? Was it the day after the last show? I think it was, wasn't it? Lots of people had some really great suggestions about what they could be getting at. I'll make sure I get this right. It was Marie Johnson. It was Marie. You last week, basically, I think you pretty much nailed it because the picture that we're looking at there was Ernest Shackleton, a photo from, I think it was 1914 near Antarctica. Basically with the announcement that we are going to talk about later, this was one of the frames, a frame taken from the video of the announcement. They didn't actually mention Shackleton Crater by name, but it just sort of came up and passed by. But I think you pretty much nailed it, Marie, that it was about going back to the moon, Shackleton Crater and other bits and pieces. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. So anyway, well done Marie and everyone else with all your really awesome suggestions about what that could have been. You're a clever audience. There's lots of really clever people out there with lots of really good suggestions. This week's competition. Now I've just realised yet again I haven't organised a prize for tonight, so I keep doing that, I keep forgetting. But anyway, I know what the competition is going to be. Hang on, I just need to turn that down. The competition tonight is related to our countdown. Let me just play you again, for those of you who didn't see the countdown, before the start of the show, this is what it looks like. This is what we have on our countdown. The competition tonight is to tell me what is wrong with our countdown. I can see at least one thing. There's more than one thing wrong there. So you've got a few seconds to look at that and tell me what is wrong with our countdown. Okay, so we will get back to that a little bit later on, so just post it in the live chat or in the comments. I'm going to fix it. I purposefully didn't fix it this week so that you could have another look at it, but I think you've all had long enough to have a look at that and tell me what is wrong with it. So let's get on with some of the other stuff. So in our housekeeping, what have we got to talk about tonight? First up, I think we really want to talk about, just briefly, because I don't want to go on about this, but this is our Patreon page. So we've just recently started a Patreon page where you can subscribe and give us money, because this show is actually quite expensive to produce, and we would really appreciate $1 a month or so. I haven't actually I forgot to put the link on the description, but we will have the link on the description and in the show notes. It's pretty easy. It's just patreon.com/Space Center. Yes, it is. It is. In fact, I'm showing you right there, aren't I? It's up there, patreon.com/Space Center. So if you want to give us some money, that would be awesome. So last week, we did get a new patron, and that is Michael Sigley. So thank you so much for getting on board. It's a real morale boost as much as anything else. So thanks heaps. Now, I don't know what you did, Michael, but just after you had signed up last week, I got an email from Patreon telling me that they had noticed some suspicious activity, and my account is now under review. So honestly, I trust you, but something's going on there. Anyway, thank you. We really do appreciate that. Now, just quickly, we need to think a little bit more about the rewards that we're going to offer on Patreon. So I do have a list of things that we offer there, depending on which level you sign up for. You can see some of the rewards that you get. Now, I want to keep adding to this, but I'm told that a really popular kind of reward is to let people in behind the scenes. So here's another question for you. Feel free to comment in the chat and whatnot. Is that something you'd be interested in? Would you like to have some sort of private video chats, or be able to see the show notes before they go to air and sort of get involved in some of the discussions, maybe even help plan the shows? Yeah, I'm told that that's a really popular thing. So I'm quite open to that idea if anyone is interested in that. So anyway, that's enough about our Patreon stuff. I don't want to keep going on and on about it because I don't like begging for money, but it would be really cool if you do want to give us some money. So another thanks that I have to do tonight, this is to Raquel and Dale Richards, who came in a short while ago and gave us a whole bunch of presents. And I love getting presents. It's awesome. Now, you can see in the shop behind me over there, you see that stuff on the wall, the slat wall that you see in shops. It's really expensive stuff, but they came in and gave me a whole bunch of slat wall and some other things left over from their business, which is actually worth quite a lot of money. So I'm really grateful to you guys. Thank you so much for donating those things. Yeah, that was really awesome. We've had a lot of presents recently. Let me show you a couple of other things. Now, I've got to get this right. This one was from Julia Coddington from Te Aute College, who has sent a whole bunch of really cool stuff from the Sophia mission. Some of you will be familiar with that. It's an airborne observatory, a NASA one that's in that plane there. There's a telescope inside. Yeah, it's hard doing this backwards. There's a telescope in there, and that comes to New Zealand a lot. And so they've given me a whole bunch of stuff there, which is really awesome. And I got this really cool first day cover about Isaac Newton. You can't really see it very well, and that was from Christine Roberts. Thank you so much, Christine, for that. So I love getting presents. If you feel like sending us a present, there's all sorts of ideas that we've got. Here's a really cool one. I want to show you this one. If you feel like buying me something really neat, Christie's Auction House is about to auction the Apollo 11, that was the first moon landing, their book, because they used to use these hard copy things, of course. It's all computerized now, but back in the day, they used this kind of book, and you can see it's actually... it was annotated by Neil and Buzz throughout the mission. They've made notes and stuff. So this is the whole timeline that was actually on Apollo 11. So this is a stunning piece. I just love this. People often ask me if I had a wish list for the museum here, what would I like? And my answer is usually something that's been on the surface of the moon. Well, this is just amazing. I would love this one. So if you want to buy this for me, just go to the auction house. It's expected to sell for somewhere between $7 and $9 million US. So just remember to do the conversion there. I don't want you to get that wrong. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that in my post office box. Or if you're feeling a little bit cheap, you could just get me a Neil Armstrong signed photo, I suppose. That's worth about $7,000 to $9,000. So yeah, that would do. But it's that book there that I'm really after. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. Anyway, that's enough of that one. So just a couple of other quick things, what's happening at the Space Center here. This is our really busy time for schools. I've talked about that. So we've had a few schools coming through recently. This was Te Aroha School. I think about 200 students came from there. We had a lot of fun with them. And we're getting schools coming through pretty much every day at the moment, which does make things really, really busy here at the Space Centre, and that is, to be honest, making it quite difficult to prepare for the show here. So I'm finding that I'm not really having much time to go into a lot of detail to prepare stuff. So for that reason, we are kind of concentrating mostly just on news from the last week rather than having me prepare big talks about specific topics. So that's probably going to be the case for the next few months, really. So that's that. A couple of other things are happening here. Karsten mentioned this just before. We are soon going to have fibre. Here in Kihikihi, in our little village, we're getting fibre coming through. So here's some of the guys out there working on it. This is really exciting stuff, as you can imagine. This is a really cool bunch of guys here. It's a team that's come out from the Philippines. They don't really speak much English, but we've been having a lot of fun with them. Here's a photo of them out the back, taking some photos with our astronaut photo op. So they've been a lot of fun having those guys here. So we're really looking forward to getting fibre, and that will probably help with just the whole quality and everything we're doing with the broadcast here. One last piece of housekeeping that we have to do, and that is this year is the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, the first moon landing, and we need to think about some ways that we are going to celebrate that. And I've actually been contacted by Dean Taylor from our local newspaper who wants to do something in conjunction with the paper. So I'm open to ideas. If you've got any suggestions for things that we can do both here at the Space Centre and in conjunction with our local newspaper to celebrate Apollo 11, we're all ears. We would love to hear your suggestions. Here's one thing that one company is doing. Oreos. Everyone loves Oreos, don't they? They're bringing out a special commemorative edition Oreo thing with, you can see all the moon themed stuff on there. So if you're into Oreos, they're on their way out soon. Actually, looking at those pictures there, I can see a few things wrong with them as well. We shouldn't really be too picky, should we? Okay, Karsten, hang on a sec. What do you reckon, Karsten? What can you see there?
Yeah, you can see stars and half
nice.
crescents.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if you can see there, can we see that over here? But you see the ones down the bottom there, you can see the crescent moon and there are stars in front of it. You would never see that, of course. I'm also thinking up there on the top right, that doesn't really look much like an Apollo spacecraft to me, does it? It looks more like a shuttle. But anyway, good on you, Oreo. Yeah, we're looking forward to them. I'll definitely be getting some. So let's just have a quick look before we move on to the news at how our chat is going. Right, so it seems to be working all right, and I think we've got the direction going in the same way, so hopefully it's a little bit better. So Wendy, we said hi to you. Hi Ian, hi Claire, hi Janet. Nice to see you guys on Facebook. Thanks for joining in. Hi Caitlin. I'm thinking about trying to name everyone. I said I wouldn't do that, but I think it is nice to say hi to everyone. So Caitlin, John, Hermione, thank you. Ange, welcome along. We've got William. You can get some. I should get some rockets. Now this is the handle that I can't pronounce. So whatever your name is, sorry about that. But yeah, that's a good suggestion. Right, I should be actually trying to read the comments, should I? We've got the scroll going, so that's all really... Oh, look, there's heaps more. Yikes. Okay, so just bear with me while I practice seeing our comments. Thank you guys for your positive comments there. Righto, Fletcher, you've been here before. Hi, Fletcher. That's good. I hope you enjoyed your time here. Harry. Hi, Harry. I've been meaning to say hi to you. Finally noticed. Nice to have you along. Hi, William, and all you other guys there. The Blue Origin news. Yes, we're getting to the Blue Origin news. Right, we've had one suggestion about what's wrong with our countdown, the sun's light around the Earth. Yeah, it's not perfect, it's not great, it's not the main thing that's wrong with it, but that is good spotting. We've got another one. Is the Earth spinning the wrong way? Ooh, it could be it. It could be it. Yeah, okay. Not all the planets are there. Sunlight wrong and wrong background. Yep, John, you are onto it too because the background stars are actually not too flash either. The Earth isn't orbiting. Okay, yep, good call, Harry. Right, not sure what's going on there. Yes, behind the scenes would be cool. Thanks, Hermione, for that. Fletcher, you would love that as well. Behind the scenes. Okay, well, that's interesting. So that's a pretty good response from that. Thank you guys for that feedback. Nice and quick. Yeah, let's keep it. Caitlin's wondering how much that module will go for. So the book there, you will definitely keep an eye on that. Actually remind me. If I forget, we'll go back and we'll have a look at what that thing actually did go for. Happy birthday coming up, John. Hope you have a good day. The audio. We need to talk about the audio. Okay, don't let me forget. We'll come to that next. Yep, I'm going to go to the moon. I'm going to bring back some rocks. I might even bring you back one. Look, these are lots of comments, aren't they? Hi, MG Peaceful. All right, you visited during the school holidays. Nice to see you back on here. Thank you for that. G'day, Crookie from Hamilton. Could you do a special exhibition? That's not a bad idea, John. We will think about that. Thank you for that one. So that's not a bad idea, actually. There's probably a few things that we could pull out. We've got a few old newspaper clippings and things of the Apollo landing. So yeah, that's a good idea. And you pronounced my name Flishcat. Have I got that right? Flishcat. That would be awesome. Thank you. And the Earth is spinning too fast. You're right, William. Okay. Righto. That's actually hard work keeping up with all of those comments, isn't it? But look, I'll try my best. We've got to be a little bit careful because we do have to keep moving on with the show as well. But as always, we do really appreciate all your comments. So thanks for that, guys. Now, while I think about it, we do need to talk about that audio, don't we? So look, we are aware that there is an issue with the lip sync or the audio not being quite in sync with the video. We've got a few problems with that because it's different on YouTube to Facebook. Also, the recorded version actually seems to start coming right again. So if we adjust our lip sync, that's actually going to create problems as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick test. Pay attention because this is audience participation. I'm going to clap my hands and I want you to post in the comment whether the sound is coming before or after the clap and roughly how long do you think. So if I go like this, is the sound coming before or after the clap? And if you could have a rough guess as to how long it's coming before or after. Okay, we can I can actually almost see it there too here. So what we're going to do is if we can get some comments of that, we can try and get a feel for how much and on which platforms the audio is out. We'll try and adjust it and see if we can come to some sort of compromise to get that right. So thanks for that, guys. I actually would have forgotten about that, so thanks for pointing that one out. Anyway, it is time to get on with some space news because there's lots to talk about tonight and we need to get on with some stuff. Right, first of all, a couple of quick updates. Last week we looked at the Rocket Lab launch and I wondered if we were listening to Peter Beck during the countdown and some other stuff during the ascent to orbit. So I now have it on, I've got the inside scoop, so I've got it on really good authority that the countdown is done by Peter Beck, and that is Peter Beck with his arms outstretched over there in the back. He's not actually the flight director, he's sitting next to, what do they call it here? So I think they call it the launch director. I'm going to have to check that one out again, aren't I, for next week? Anyway, but that is all he says. For the rest of the video that we watched, the launch, it's Peter doesn't say anything else, but it is him doing the countdown there. So it's really neat, isn't it, having a Kiwi doing the countdown? I love that bit. Another quick update, we have talked about the NASA internships. So that was open. This is the international internship thing where people from around the world can apply to go and do an internship at NASA. And we have had I think it was four people from New Zealand get accepted into that. So that is really awesome. They're going to have a lot of fun. Now look, just to be clear, these people aren't going to go and be astronauts for NASA, but they are going to go and do scientific research. So there are some of their names there and some photos. Let me just sort of scroll down slowly so you can see them. The links for all the stuff is in the show notes if you want to go and check this out. So that's really exciting for you guys. Well done, congratulations. I'm sure you're going to have an awful lot of fun. So I think that was all the updates we had to do. Right, so let's get to talking about some of the stuff that's happening in space. Remember we talked about that last mission that was the SpaceX mission that was launched to the space station with a whole bunch of science experiments on it. I just want to go over a couple of the science things that are happening on the station. This one is really neat. This is a photobioreactor that has been sent up to the space station. So this intriguing looking piece of equipment here is it went up with that last SpaceX mission, and it uses algae and photosynthesis to convert carbon dioxide into oxygen and food, believe it or not. So that's crazy, but this is, who is it developed by? The German Aerospace Centre, so we better give credit to them. And this is a really positive step towards developing a closed loop system. In other words, a fully recyclable system where everything gets recycled and reused and there's no wastage. So that's really exciting. I think we really want to keep a close eye on this one. The next one I wanted to talk about is actually a short video. So I'm going to play you this video. I've often talked about this, about how there's a lot of research being done on the space station. There's a lot of medical research. It's a big thing up there. And this is very similar to the one that we recently talked about, but this one is actually about Parkinson's. So let me just bring this up. I'm just going to play you this video and let the astronauts on the space station explain what's going on here.
Welcome to Expedition 57 on board the International Space Station. Today we're doing some really cool science. This is Alex Gerst over here with me, and we are working on Parkinson's disease. What we're looking at here is a special protein kinase, or protein crystal structure. And the reason scientists have sent it up here to the International Space Station is because these protein crystals tend to grow larger and of much better quality. Parkinson's is a disease that affects over 5 million people worldwide, and scientists are constantly searching for a cure. And what we discovered was that here in the microgravity environment, these crystals really like to grow. So if scientists can better elucidate or clarify the structure, then they're better able to develop an inhibitor drug for Parkinson's. And not only an inhibitor drug, but an inhibitor drug with very few side effects. So what Alex is doing here today is he's obviously working on the wall, is what it seems like here in microgravity, and he is. He's got a microscope above him, and he's got a plate that he filled with this special protein crystal structure just a few days ago. He gave time for those structures to crystallize, and now he's examining them under the microscope. And he's actually interacting real time with the principal investigator on the ground to look at the crystal structure, to help improve the lighting and the clarity, and then also take pictures, which will then be sent back down to the ground. So here on board Expedition 57, we're very proud to be taking part in this experiment. I think in the past few years, scientists have realized that the microgravity environment is such a unique environment to grow things like cells or protein crystals. And it provides a new way to help us look at diseases in a better way, to help us develop new medications for these diseases. And so we're happy to be taking part in this science up here.
There you go. So yeah, I'm a big fan of all of that kind of science for pretty obvious reasons, really. I think they're doing a lot of very cool, very exciting stuff up there. I think that was all we really wanted to talk about just with those latest science missions. But in the show notes, there's a link to a long video that shows you, that goes into detail with all of the science missions that were launched on that last CRS-17 mission from SpaceX. So enough about that for now. We need to talk about what's happening with the moon, because it's just all on, isn't it? It's just all on with the race back to the moon. So a couple of announcements. First of all, from NASA. So President Trump has announced that he has requested another $1.6 billion to get NASA back to the moon quickly. So just to be clear again, this is a budget request. So what's happened is that he's requested an extra $1.6 billion. That now has to go to Congress. So it doesn't mean that NASA has got this extra money. It just means that he wants it for them. So you can see down below, Jim Bridenstine, the NASA administrator, has said that this would be earmarked for the human lunar landing system, so a system to get onto the moon, which they're not actually really working on at the moment, and a couple of other things there. And the other announcement, I guess, from NASA is that it now has a name. Their mission back to the moon is going to be called Artemis. Those of you, oh, it actually says it there, doesn't it? Those of you who are familiar with mythology will know that Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo, which is a good name for a mission back to the moon. Interestingly, actually, Jim Bridenstine's making quite a big deal that there's going to be men and at least one woman. He keeps coming back to that, so he's obviously very keen to have a woman on the moon, which will be nice, because the first moon landings came a little bit too early, frustratingly so actually, just a little bit too early for female astronauts. So anyway, so that's the name of it. The graphic CGI thing that you see on the right there, that's just a sort of a mock-up. I wouldn't read too much into that. That's what they're, the picture that they're putting out with a moon landing system, but it's such early days that honestly I don't think you really want to read anything into that. So So let's just, I'll just check my notes here. So what else is going to happen? Yeah, so the Gateway system, if you remember that, that's the new sort of mini space station that will be orbiting the moon to help get astronauts down onto the moon. That will probably be downsized. That's the latest, but they're still going to do it. The plan is to have that Gateway, but perhaps put off the whole full Gateway and just sort of have a smaller version in the meantime. Actually, there's a lot of things happening here. I'm sensing that what's happening is that almost a little bit of desperation to get it done by 2024. They're very fixated. President Trump, Jim Bridenstine and other people are really focused on that 2024. And that, of course, if Trump gets re-elected, that would be his last year in office. So it seems to me that he really, really wants people on the moon while he's still president. And it appears to me that they're prepared to make quite a few compromises to get people back to the moon by 2024. So I don't really agree with much that comes out of President Trump's mouth, but I'll take this one. If he can get us back to the moon or give us the money, we'll take it and we'll go with it. But I am a little concerned, actually. I have to say that this, we shouldn't be so constrained with deadlines when we're starting to make compromises. And it's just a little bit of a worry. We'll talk more about that some other time, perhaps. Also, just one other thing, it is starting to look a little bit more like the NASA's SLS rockets will be the preferred option to get people back to the moon rather than the commercial rockets, as we've talked about recently. But still, I think those commercial rockets will certainly play a part. I'd be very surprised if the mission, NASA's mission back to the moon doesn't include any kind of private commercial rockets or support of some sort. That brings us to what we really want to be talking about tonight, and that's the Blue Moon thing. Blue Origin, we talked about them quite a lot last week with their New Shepard launch and that sort of stuff. And then we said that there was going to be this announcement, and there was the big announcement. Here's how it was covered by stuff.co.nz, and I used this one because the headline stuck out to me. Jeff Bezos aims to send a spaceship to the moon for real this time. Hey, what? What are you trying to say, stuff.co.nz? I hope you're not trying to say we didn't go there in the first place. I'm hoping that what you really meant by that was that we're going back to stay, because that's what Jeff Bezos is saying. But I didn't really like that headline. It didn't appeal to me at all. Anyway, we need to talk about what happened. So first of all, we need to do a quick recap on the New Glenn. So you remember last week we talked about the New Glenn rocket. Let me just bring up the video for that. And we showed you some CGI imagery of that. So this is Blue Origin's next big rocket after their New Shepard. This will be the one that gets them further than low Earth orbit, perhaps back to the moon, that sort of thing. I'm showing you this because this is an updated CGI rendering of the whole thing. So you're looking there at the first stage is firing. It's on its way up towards orbit. So I've just got a couple of quick notes here. So the first stage is powered by 7 BE4 engines, which are powered by liquid natural gas, actually, which is mostly methane and oxygen. Then we're looking at the second stage there, which is powered by 2 BE3U optimized engines, vacuum optimized engines. Those are the same engines that the New Shepard has, but just optimized for vacuum. They're powered by liquid hydrogen and oxygen. That part is expendable, but the first stage that you're seeing here does come back and lands on the barge like that. That's the plan. And so that's just an updated, a few updated specs and things like that. I noticed that they say that this first stage that you're seeing there is supposed to be reusable 25 times. That's a drop from what they've said previously. Previously, they were saying that the first stage would be used 100 times. So that's quite a big drop there. But still, I think that's all looking really good. So that's just a quick update on the New Glenn. But what we are really here to talk about was the big announcement. And in fact, what I'll do is let's just cut over to that video. So hang on, let me just recap it a little bit. So the announcement that we saw online came in the form of quite a long video of a presentation that Jeff Bezos did. So it was over 50 minutes, the whole presentation, and it was announced at this big glitzy show. Quite unusual actually for an announcement. Well, it seemed to me that it was more targeted at perhaps the general public the general mainstream media rather than the sort of space media. It was very flashy, and I can't help thinking that it was targeted largely at politicians, and we'll probably get back to that in a sec. But anyway, so the whole video, the link will be in the show notes if you want to watch the whole thing. The first half an hour or so, to be honest, was just Jeff talking up about why we need to get back into space and why it's all so important. So you could probably go straight to about half an hour into it. Then he goes on to his big announcement. What I've done is I've chopped that whole thing down to just a few minutes. And I think it is quite important to watch all of this at least. But I have taken the liberty of cutting it down and editing it quite a bit. So this is his big reveal. After about half an hour or something, this is what he is showing us. Let's have a look.
This is Blue Moon. We've been working on this lander for 3 years. It's a very large lander, 3.6 metric tons onto the lunar surface. The stretch tank variant of it will soft land 6.5 metric tons. The deck is designed to be a very simple interface so that a great variety of payloads can be placed onto the top deck and secured. And the davit system, which is inspired by naval systems, you can see it over here, is what's used to lower things off of the deck onto the surface of the moon. And the davits can be customized for the particular payloads. We have here as an example a very large rover. And by the way, even though that's a large rover, this vehicle can land 4 of them simultaneously on the surface of the moon. On the left-hand side, you can see our star tracker, so that this vehicle can autonomously navigate. On the right-hand side, you'll see an optical communication system that gives us gigabit bandwidth back to Earth. It's a laser that transmits data back to Earth. Why are we using liquid hydrogen as our fuel? A couple of reasons. One, it's very high performance, and so that helps a lot when you're landing on the moon. That's that after you've got to carry all of your propellant to the moon. Second reason we're using liquid hydrogen is because ultimately we're going to be able to get hydrogen from that water on the moon and be able to refuel these vehicles on the surface of the moon and use them. So liquid hydrogen is an excellent choice for fuel for the moon. And we use it 3 ways on this vehicle. And it's very interesting. The liquid hydrogen, of course, is the fuel for the descent engine, so it powers the descent. But we also use the boil off, so when liquid hydrogen, when heat seeps in through the tank walls and liquid hydrogen gasifies a little bit, it boils. And that very cold gas is passed around the liquid oxygen tanks to prevent the liquid oxygen from boiling off. So that's the second use of the liquid hydrogen. And then after it has cooled the liquid oxygen tanks, it is pushed into an accumulator where it then powers hydrogen fuel cells. And we chose hydrogen fuel cells for this vehicle rather than solar cells because we want to be able to survive the lunar night, which you can't do with solar cells. The lunar night is 2 weeks long, and it gets very cold. One thing is when this vehicle, there are payload bays here on the sides, and when this vehicle is in orbit around the moon, as a kind of extra mission, a bonus mission, it can launch small satellites into orbit around the moon so that we can do certain kinds of science. You see it happening here. So we're deploying a number of small satellites before we do our landing. You're going to see a set of burns that will take us down to the surface. The primary burn is 6 minutes long. This BE-7 engine will be firing for 6 minutes. It's a very long burn. We verticalize about 1 kilometer above the surface. You can see that happening now. A very precise landing, again, using those flash lidars to detect surface features and using those for navigation. Now we're going to watch as the davit system, which is inspired by a naval system, deploys a rover. Look at those long shadows. The shadows are always long on the poles of the moon.
Isn't that awesome? I reckon it's awesome. I love it. I reckon that's fantastic. So, yeah, there's a fair bit to take in there. Now, I'm just having a quick look at the comments. And let's just see if we can catch up on them. So, let's see. Right, first of all, thanks for your comments about the audio delay so far. That is really helpful. Thank you guys for that. Caitlin wonders why it's a sphere. So you could see that, in fact, I think we can still see it if we have a look back here. You can see that big sphere thing in the middle there. Oh, no, it's already gone. Sorry about that. But that's actually the fuel tank. So this lander is actually just the lander part of it, and the point is that on top of it there is a deck. In fact, let's just have a look a picture of that from a different angle here. So that bottom part is the lander, and in this case you can see that there is a rover on the top of it. So the idea with this one, it's got that deck on top, and you put whatever payload you want on top of it, and then the rest of it is just to get you down onto the surface. Then whatever is your payload gets put down onto the surface, and you do whatever you want with it. And that's a really cool sounding, versatile kind of system, so you can use it for lots of different things. In this case, that is a pressurized rover, so you can have people in it and drive around on the moon. So the idea would be that you drop that down on first, it gets off and it's ready for the astronauts before they get there. Then you can bring another one down. For example, this one is a slightly different version of the whole lander. On top of that is an ascent stage. So that can have the astronauts in it. That brings the astronauts down to the moon. Then when they want to go home, they hop back in there, and that will blast them back off into orbit. So it's supposed to be a very versatile kind of system. It's whatever's on top of the deck is what you want to get down there. And in terms of that sphere, or this is actually you can kind of see it on the sides there, I think, by the looks of it. So yeah, that's actually the fuel tank. So that's not the vehicle, or part of the vehicle that has people and stuff in it. That's just where they would store the liquid hydrogen and oxygen. So just for the sake of completeness, for all you real rocket nerds out there, this is the new engine that they are developing, the BE7 engine. I mean, you can go and look it up if you want to find out what all the specs are for that one. So there are some people who take their rocket engines very seriously, and you'll definitely want to go and find out what this one is all about. So the whole thing is quite interesting, really. I think there's a few things to note here. One of them is that Blue Origin doesn't normally come out and talk a lot about the stuff that they haven't done yet. So it's a little bit unusual, I think, to come out and make this big announcement before they've even test fired the engine and done that other stuff. And I suspect, again, that this is aimed at the politicians. Because NASA has recently got really, really enthusiastic about getting back to the moon soon, then no doubt Blue Origin is thinking, wow, we want a piece of that pie. So they've already been working for 3 years on this lander. So they're ahead of anyone else who has yet to get started. So they've got a good head start, and I'm picking that they want to throw their hat in the ring and say to NASA, look, consider this. We're already well on the way. We can help you get back to the moon. So I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think they're in a pretty good position, to be honest, if this goes well. So there you go. That's what's happening with Blue Origin. Where were we at with the chats? Was there anything else that I wanted to say? There was a question about why are some of the messages on YouTube being taken out, being retracted. I don't know, actually. I haven't come across that yet. It could be because we've got slow mode on, so you can only post, I think it's about once every minute or something like that. That's to stop us from getting spammed. Right, what else was there? It looks like it has a moon inside. It doesn't actually. It's a weird looking thing, isn't it? So, Dave's gone. Yikes. Am I still here? He was gone. Okay. Oh, it could have been when I didn't turn my mic up in time. I do it about once a week, don't I? But I'm getting faster, aren't I? I'm getting faster at realizing what's happening. Anyway, so that's what's happening with Blue Origin. There's one more quick thing about Blue Origin. This is something probably for teachers, perhaps. They also announced this initiative. It's called the Club for Future. That's the website address there, clubforfuture.org, where they're offering students to Is it just students? Or it could be anyone. Sorry, I could be wrong about that, but go and look it up if you want to anyway, because I didn't really have time to look into this, but they're offering you the chance, if you're quick, to, well, you can see it there, write or draw your vision of the future on a postcard, and you might get it sent into space and get it sent back to you. That would be very cool indeed. So just go and look that up if you're interested in that. Right, there's one more thing that I wanted to talk about that Jeff Bezos did talk about in his presentation. I mentioned that he spent a lot of time in the first half an hour talking about why we get into space, why we want to go there. And we actually talked about that last week, so I won't harp on about it. But remember, we did that discussion where I pointed out that for the long-term future of humanity, we have a choice that has only two options. One of them is that we have population control, some kind of enforced population control, or we go into space. At least one of those two things must happen in our future. There's no way around it. So, or it could be voluntary population control or accidental population control, so let's be clear, but some form, we can't keep growing unless we go into space. It's just that simple. So anyway, Jeff Bezos made some interesting comments talking about where we might go into space, and he made what I thought was some quite pointed comments about going and living on Mars and having a colony on Mars, and he was saying that that's not a good plan. And I suspect he was having a bit of a dig at Elon Musk about that. Elon Musk, as you know, his whole plan is to get us to be a multi-planetary species, and he wants to have bases on Mars. Now, if you've ever seen any of my talks or shows where I talk about the long-term future of humanity and where we might go in space, you will know that I'm actually pretty much with Jeff Bezos on this one, and that is that I think the long-term future of space colonies will involve planets. I actually do think that, but there are real problems with actually trying to live long-term on other planets, and I'm actually a fan for the very long-term future of this kind of thing. These again came from Jeff Bezos' presentation, but these are old concepts here. It goes back a long way. This is called an O'Neill cylinder or an O'Neill colony. The idea is that you make these enormous cylinders in space that look like this inside. So you're basically recreating an Earth-like environment in these staggeringly large structures in space. And the thing with that is that this is, well, it's certainly in our solar system, this is the only way that you can actually make a real Earth-like environment. There are some things about living on other planets where you can never fully recreate what it's like on Earth. Mainly gravity. Mars has a certain gravity and we can't change that. So whereas you could do that, in a system like this you can actually make the gravity whatever you want it to be, you can have the atmosphere whatever you want it to be, and there's a lot of other advantages. Now obviously when you look at this is a long way in the future. We're not anywhere close to being able to develop something like that. In fact, I mean, when you think about the International Space Station, it would be smaller than some of the buildings that you're seeing in this view here. But I think it is worth thinking about this. If you're into the really long-term stuff, I think it's really fascinating to look into this kind of thing. So there you go. That was what that was all about. I think, unless we've got anything else in the chat about Jeff Bezos' stuff, I think, let me just check to make sure my scrolling's still working. Yep, so let's talk about a couple of other quick things that are happening in the news. Richard Branson has decided that, this is Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic thing that a lot of people tend to associate with private space and space tourism and that sort of thing. So he bought into this a long time ago now, and it has just taken forever to get up and running. They've had a couple of really nasty fatal accidents which set them back a lot. But recently, Richard Branson has announced that he's going to be moving a lot of his operations from California to New Mexico, to Spaceport America in New Mexico. In fact, I've got a photo of that here. So this is Spaceport America. Now this is the thing that was started quite some time ago now. Richard Branson made a big pitch to the people in, we were in New Mexico, and he convinced them to spend $200 million US of taxpayers' money to invest in this, with the promise that it was going to be the new space hub for private tourism and stuff. And it just hasn't happened. And there's been a lot of people getting really angry about this big white elephant just sitting there doing nothing for all these years. And I think a lot of people were giving up on it. However, they will be encouraged by this. So I think we're actually starting to get back there. So Richard Branson is they've got a few more tests to do on this. It's not quite there yet, but they are hoping to get this up and running pretty soon, really. I don't think they didn't have any definite dates for their tests or first commercial flights, but they are getting there. So just a quick reminder, the way this one works is it flies up very high in the atmosphere, and that one in the middle is actually the spaceship. So that sort of drops off, it falls off the rest of the aircraft, and that bit flies up into space. This still is only suborbital, just like, well, not just like, but similar to the new Shepherd that we talked about last week. So, like I said last week, there's a bit of a problem with this, because once people are able to go into full orbit, why would you pay money to go on one of these things? And the thing is with this, is that I don't see how this could be scalable up to being an orbital vehicle. I could be wrong on that, but I don't see how you could scale this one up. So I noticed that Richard Branson is more keen to now talk about using this for intercontinental travel. So rather than just being a trip into space, he's selling it as a way to get very quickly from, say, America over to Europe, just in a couple of hours, and have a little bit of a space trip along the way. So anyway, it's starting to look a little bit better now. So hopefully we'll have some good news from Virgin Galactic in the months ahead. Right, we talked about SpaceX last week. This is going to be launched tomorrow, that thing that you're looking at there. This is that Starlink thing that we talked about, which is the constellation of satellites for internet service provision. So it's kind of weird, isn't it? When you look at that, you think, what on earth are we actually looking at there? There are 60 satellites in there. Roughly 60, I think it's 60. Anyway, it's kind of hard to tell where one finishes and the next one starts, but so this is in the fairing, that bit at the very top of the rocket. This is what's going to be deployed in space. If you want to watch this launch, it's sometime tomorrow afternoon, New Zealand time. So this is the first launch. This is really still testing, but this is the first step in getting that whole constellation around the Earth, where Elon Musk is hoping to have full high-speed internet coverage around the world. Now, I'll just point one thing out here. A lot of people think, why would you have internet coverage in space? Surely that can't be as good as links down here on the ground where you're connecting continents via fiber optics. Well, funnily enough, as it happens, when you send a signal by fiber optic, it doesn't actually travel at the speed of light in a vacuum. It's quite a lot slower. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's only about half the speed, actually. So it's not what you normally think of as the speed of light. Now, if you can transmit a signal up into space and have it transferred around the Earth at the actual speed of light in a vacuum and back down again, that's actually faster. For most of us, that's not really going to make any difference, but I understand that for people who are interested in extreme high-speed things with no latency, that could be a big thing. So anyway, that is something to look forward in the future. We may see a little bit of action on, well, I'm sure we will, on Elon Musk's Starlink. Okay, we've got a few more quick fire sort of news things that I want to get through here. Let's have a quick look at this video. This is from NASA's Curiosity, which is the rover on Mars at the moment. This is a fairly short video. I think, yeah, it's about less than 1 minute long. Let's just have a quick listen to this.
Our Mars Odyssey spacecraft captured imagery of the Martian moon Phobos during a full moon phase. Each color in the new image represents a temperature range detected by the Thermal Emission Imaging System, or THEMIS, Odyssey's infrared heat vision camera. THEMIS has been studying the moon since September of 2017. This full moon view is better for studying material composition, whereas half moon views are better for looking at surface textures. A pair of interns at our Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, are using 3D printers to develop a series of soft, flexible robotic actuators to investigate the viability of using soft robots for future space exploration and assembly tasks, possibly during missions to the Moon and Mars. Being constructed from highly flexible materials such as silicone enables soft robots to move more like living organisms, which allows for an increased range of motion that traditional metal robots do not have.
That's a weird one, eh? What do you reckon about that one? Does it look creepy to you? I don't know. It's what do you guys out there reckon? It's interesting that you don't like the look of it. Yeah, it's a bit weird, isn't it, really? But I think it's really promising. I love robots, and I think that's it's interesting. We'll definitely keep an eye on that. I think it's certainly got a lot of potential. Now, we had a quick a question on Facebook. What was it? Is that better than 5G? Look, honestly, I don't really know. Yeah, look, I'm not going to answer that because I'm not exactly sure what the answer will be. So I don't know how it would compare to the two of them, and I don't want to give you wrong information. The Club for the Future, that was basically, what was the URL for it? I've already forgotten. It was back over here. Let's just have a quick look at that. So that was this, there's actually more to it than what I've just said, but it's Jeff Bezos's idea to get, I think, mostly young people involved in the future of space exploration. So if you want to learn more about that, just go and look up clubforfuture.org. Now, there's one thing that I wanted to mention about SpaceX, actually. I should have mentioned that while we were talking about them just before. You may recall that SpaceX has booked a trip around the moon. So there's this Japanese guy, let me just bring him up over here. This is his Twitter feed. He goes by the interesting handle of You Suck 2020, but he's a millionaire Japanese artist guy, and he has booked a trip with SpaceX to take himself and a bunch of artist friends around the moon to come back, and they're going to make an art project out of it. So this has been big news in the whole discussion about getting back to the moon, because really that would be the next one. Now, it's not a moon landing mission, but just around the moon and back again. So some of us have been a bit skeptical about whether SpaceX could actually pull this off in the time frame that they were saying. That's been thrown into more doubt now because apparently this guy has recently tweeted a message that said something like, "Yes, I have no money at all." So that doesn't sound too promising. So don't really know exactly what's going on there, but I'm picking that that mission could be in a little bit of trouble. So as I say, I've always been a little bit skeptical of it, but yeah, I think it's looking less likely that SpaceX is actually going to do that round the moon trip. And to be honest, I think they should probably stick to their knitting for now and concentrate on the things that they are trying to get done. Right, another couple of, we've only got about 10 minutes left, so here's some more quickfire news. Scientists have been studying data from the moon, from one of NASA's orbiters around the moon, as well as some of the seismic data that came from the Apollo missions. So when people landed on the moon, they left some seismometers and other equipment I'm not quite sure about on the moon, and it seems that going back and looking over that data, that the moon looks like it may actually still be geologically active. So we've tended to think of the moon as being basically dead in those terms, just a big, like basically a cold-ish chunk of rock floating around the space, but it's now starting to look like it's actually more active than we had thought. And what you're seeing here is what they think is the moon is, as it's still cooling down, it's not completely cold, so it's still cooling down, and the idea is that it's actually contracting as it's cooling down, and that's causing moonquakes and a few ruptures and things like that. So that looks quite interesting. If you want to look it up, the link will be in the show notes. So that was that. Here's another one that I liked. The European Space Agency, who I've got a lot of time for, have proposed this idea of recognizing sustainable behavior in space, and their idea is to give all new spacecraft, in particular uncrewed satellites, so everything that goes into orbit, to give it a sustainability rating. And I think that's a great idea. So really they're getting at the problem of space junk here. So they're saying that we want a way to sort of objectively say that these particular satellites are more environmentally friendly, they've got a plan to bring them back down and stuff. So again, if you want to look it up, the link's in the show notes, but I think that's a great idea. I think we should definitely get on board with that. The Space Force, with Donald Trump again, we're talking about him again. You know about his plan, whatever you think about it, to get a Space Force. As you know, it's not really my favourite thing to talk about, military stuff in space, but I thought it was just worth a quick mention that there have been some studies into how much this would cost. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated that it would cost about $3 billion to set up and about $1.3 billion per year after that. Now, it's more complicated than that because it's not just new money going into this. They're actually talking about taking things away from the Air Force and putting it into a new branch of the military. So there's a lot of people arguing about exactly how much that is costing. But it's looking more likely, actually, that this is actually going to happen. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Right, there's another thing that I want to talk about here. This is from the International Astronomical Union. Now, this is an international, well, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Union of astronomers. So they are kind of the authority when it comes to astronomy. Tell you what, in fact, if you want to blame someone for what happened to Pluto, who killed Pluto, you can blame these people. They're the ones that made the decision to stop calling it a planet. But they've got this really neat idea to sort of come up with a system of astronomical literacy, and it's essentially a long list of all of the things that you should know about if you want to be knowledgeable about space and astronomy. I've actually been working on a similar sort of thing on our website at spacecentre.nz, but these guys are doing it much better, to be honest. This is the proposed booklet that they're putting out, links in the show notes, but let's just have a look down here. So the idea of this is that we've got a list of things, of points that you should know about, and then if we just scroll down even further, just bear with me while I whiz down past all of this stuff. So you can see that each of the points here then has a list of bullet points underneath it of things that you should know if you're into space. And I think that's a fantastic idea. So the idea is that it just sort of covers everything. So if you went through the whole thing and worked through it all, anything you don't know about, go and research it. By the time you get to the end of all of this, you will know all you need to know about space. So what a cool idea. So go and check that out. Links in the show notes. It's a work in progress. They're actually asking for suggestions. So if you can think of anything that they've left out of there that should be in it, that's what they're calling for. So let's see. We need to keep moving on. I've just got a couple of other quick things to get through here. Here's one about quantum physics. We all love quantum physics, don't we? We love talking about this. There's no way we've got time to really talk about this. So this is one for those of you who know about quantum physics. There's a very famous experiment called the double slit experiment. In a nutshell, that tells us that if you fire photons or electrons, subatomic particles at a barrier with a couple of slits in it, you can fire individual particles through it, but the interference pattern you get on the other side shows that these things are actually behaving as a wave, which doesn't make any sense at all. Doesn't make any sense to any of us. That's what this picture is showing. So they're firing particles through the left and they're landing in such a way on the right that it's making a sort of an interference pattern. Go and look it up if you're interested, the double slit experiment. What I just quickly wanted to mention here is that scientists have recently discovered that antimatter does the same thing. So in the past we've fired things like electrons through these double slits and we've had this effect. They've now been able to do it with positrons, the antimatter equivalent of electrons. So I guess that would have been the default assumption. I guess if someone had asked me beforehand if that would be the case, I would have said, oh, well, I guess. I hadn't really thought about it, to be honest, until I saw this. But I thought it was just interesting for all you quantum physicists out there that antimatter seems to work in the same way as normal matter. So there you go. Have I seen the moon landing anniversary MOVA globe? Or is that what yeah, so that was a text that just came through. No, I haven't, sorry. So send us another text if you want to point me in the right direction. Otherwise, I will go and look that up. So thank you very much for sending that one through. I forgot, we haven't been talking about our competition, have we? I think we've kind of covered it anyway. We'll get back to that in just a sec. Let's just finish off the news thing. I've just got one very quick thing with the fake news tonight. Pretty much the same sort of thing. It's interesting news, but it's just the way the headlines have been worded that sort of annoys me a little bit. This is very similar to the one that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Remember that there was that story where it was reported that scientists had found the first molecules in the universe? Well, of course, that's not what had happened at all. With this story here, scientists think they found the neutron star crash that showered our solar system in gold. So what this is all about is that there's been this bit of a mystery about where some of the heavier elements in our solar system came from, and including things like gold and platinum. What these scientists are saying is that they believe that a neutron star crash could have caused that, or two neutron stars colliding or merging in the distant past would explain that. Here is the actual paper that they are referring to. So the point of this is that they haven't found the crash. like it seems to imply in this one. In fact, they haven't found any actual crash or anything at all like that. What they have done is that they have speculated that a crash like this could explain it. There you go, that's all we really want to say about that. I think what we need to do is we need to wrap up the competition. So let's just go back and have a look at what we were talking about before. So, hang on, let me just turn down that audio. Sorry guys out there. So if we just have a look at our countdown video that we use to lead into the show each night. I think you guys have actually pretty much nailed it. I think you got all the things actually. The main thing that we were thinking about was that the Earth is indeed rotating in the wrong direction. Now that's a shocking mistake. That's absolutely unforgivable, Space Dave. You should not have let that happen. And it's kind of weird because I talk about the Earth's rotation all the time. At the moment, literally every day when we do school groups over in our classroom, I show them a big globe and we talk about which way the Earth rotates. So I'm not sure how I missed that one. Basically, when I made this, I just grabbed a stock video clip of the Earth rotating and I banged the thing on top of it and thought, yep, all good as gold, done. So it's going around the wrong way. Yes, it is going too fast as well. Yes, those stars don't look like an actual star field to me. It definitely looks like a CGI thing. Yeah, the sunlight's not really right there, so it's all wrong in lots of ways. But anyway, I should fix it, shouldn't I? Or I should do another one. So I'm actually thinking I would like to do something a little bit different with the countdown and maybe put some random space facts or something like that, so you've actually got something to watch while we do the countdown. We'll see what happens next week with that one. So well done everyone who entered. Have we actually got everyone in the names of the astronaut helmet over there? Jess, we're all good to go, are we? Okay, so everyone who enters the draw gets their name put in the space helmet and we pull out a name. And I think what we're going to have to do tonight, unless anyone's got any quick ideas, we'll give away a voucher. We'll make a $25 voucher for our shop over there. So who wants to pull out a name from the hat? Michael, would you like to do that? Would you like to pull a name out of the hat? You're a special guest star tonight, so you can come over here. Jess will give you the astronaut helmet and you just pull a name out. And if you can, just call out the name there, if you can read it.
Ian Latimer.
Ian Latimer. Congratulations, Ian. If you can drop us a line on a private message or something like that, just get hold of us somehow and we will organise getting your prize to you. So thank you very much for everyone who did that. Now, I think there's only one last thing that I want to cover off tonight. We haven't really had much of a chance to be talking about some of the other sort of segments that we have in our show lately. It's all just been news, and that's just because there's been so much news happening, and also the fact that I've been a bit too busy to get some of these other things prepared. But look, I did get a photo sent to me this week by Gary Harrison. Thank you very much, Gary. Now what we're looking at here is a photo of a place called Anzac Green here in Te Awamutu, and that's the Waipa District Council offices in the background there. Now this is related to the moon hoax theory. You're all familiar with the moon hoax theory. And one of the things in the moon hoax theory is this idea that the shadows are all wrong. So they talk about this a lot, and there's a few things that they talk about, and one of them is that in some of the photos from the surface of the moon, you see shadows converging, and the conspiracy theorists say that that can't be right. That these lines, the shadows, should be parallel. And if they were coming from the sun, then you would see them as parallel, not converging like this. Here is a photo that shows you very clearly that shadows can converge. You can see all of the shadows there, and that's just what some of these photos from the surface of the moon look like. So that's that shows you that it is a real thing. So the conspiracy theorists say that what you're actually seeing is the shadows from studio lights. That's why they are converging like that, or there is more than one light source. Neither of those things make any sense at all. First of all, if you had a studio light close in, you don't get converging shadows, you get diverging shadows. So that's just silly. Also, if there was more than one light source making these shadows, you would see more than one shadow behind each thing. So it really doesn't make an awful lot of sense. So thank you very much, Gary, for sending that in. We should spend some more time having a go at the whole moon hoax thing because as you know, it's the bane of my life, closely followed by the flat earth theory. And I have a little thing, can I get, right next to me here, the number of times this month I have been asked if the moon landings were real. And we are, because we're getting back into the whole the school groups and everything, it gets almost every day actually, when I have school groups come through here, almost every day, one of the adult helpers will have a go at me about because they think we didn't really go to the moon. So yeah, I'm pretty much over that. But anyway, we've got to keep fighting the good fight there. So I think that is our time. It's just past 8 o'clock, so that is about all we had for tonight. Let us quickly check the chat messages. Let me just scroll back up a little bit here. We were up to about there. We have talked about Artemis, Jaden. So you can go back and you can watch the recorded version of this either on Facebook or YouTube. It gets automatically archived. So I can't remember exactly what time it was, but yes, we have definitely talked about that. The robot looks like snakes on the moon. They do, those soft robots. Hey, thanks, Gary. John, if you are asking how do you sign in for that the Club for the Future thing, you need to go to that URL, that website that I showed before, and to be honest, I haven't had a good look at it myself, so I'm not really sure. So you're on your own there. Hopefully it won't be too difficult. Ange has already answered that question, so thanks for that, Ange. Right, okay, so what else have we got here? Now I'm sorry if I haven't said hi to anyone in particular here, but I do appreciate all your comments. Quantum physics is awesome. John, it's a lot of fun, quantum physics. It's hard work, but it certainly is a lot of fun. Now, if I reverse the video, it would turn the right way. You are right, Caitlin. However, it wouldn't be a countdown. But that's actually probably what I will do because they're different layers. So, yeah, I should be able to reverse. In fact, I'm probably thinking that's what I will do. I'll just take that stock video image and put it around the right way. So, what else have we got here? Thanks, William, for that. That should be like, you should say, we are rocketing into space. And actually, that's not a bad idea. Thanks for that. And I still can't remember how to pronounce your username. How did you say it? Oh, I'll get back to that. Okay, thanks, guys. That's over there. Now, the other question, is that better than 5G? Referring to Elon Musk's... oh, no, we already answered that, didn't we? We already talked about, is that better than 5G? Short answer is, I'm not sure how they compare, to be honest. So... right, so we want to say thank you again to Jess over there for helping us out tonight, doing a fantastic job as always. Thank you very much for our studio audience. Like I said, it's going to be harder and harder to get people coming out on these cold winter nights out here. We're a small village with not many people, so we really appreciate your guys' commitment to come out here. Remember, if you want to come and join us in our studio audience, you are more than welcome to come along. You just come down here anytime, sort of between about 6:30 and 7 o'clock. So I think with that, unless there was anything else, I think that's everyone happy. We're all happy over here. So with that, we will call it a night. And thank you very much for tuning in again. Remember to hit the subscribe button and do all of that kind of sharing stuff. We love all of that. So we will see you again, same time next Wednesday. Good night.